Welcome everyone to the first guest lecture of the 2022 REL lecture series organized by Department of Religious Study and REL Graduate Council of University of West. My name is Miro Sakya, Chair of Department of Religious Study, and today it is my great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Venerable Usgoda Dhammagaru Thero. Venerable Dhammagaru is a resident monk at Los Angeles Buddhist Vihara, Covina, California. He was an assistant editor in Sinhala Encyclopedia and former lecturer of Sariputta National College of Education in Sri Lanka. He received his ordination in 1990 and higher ordination in 1993. He has such an impressive academic background. He earned his BA from University of California, and he holds multiple master degrees, such as master degree in linguistics, MA in Buddhism, a master in education, MPhil in philosophy, MPhil in Buddhism from various university. So topic of today's lecture is mindfulness and its application according to Buddhism. Mindfulness is a practice involved in various religious and secular tradition. Mindfulness, a common translation of the Pali word sati, cognate of Sanskrit word smriti, simply means bare attention or a function of the mind that includes memory and learning. Mindfulness is an important part of the Buddha's path. As Great Master Nagarjuna declared in his letter to a friend, mindfulness body was thoroughly taught by the Buddha. As the only path, protect it well through an attentiveness. If your mindfulness deteriorates, you will lose the entire teaching. So in today's talk, Venerable Dhammagaru will be offering in-depth teaching on mindfulness according to the Buddha, and will explain how to practice mindfulness in everyday life. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Venerable Usgoda Dhammagaru Thero.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Exalted One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Satipattanang vo bhikkhave desissami Satipattana bhavananca Satipattana bhavana gamini patipadanchati. Venerable members of the Mahasangha, friends in Dhamma, this Dhamma sermon is conducted by the University of the West. First of all, I would like to convey my gratitude to the university about your Dhammadana. This is not just a lecture but a Dhamma sermon. Giving Dhamma sermon is a merit. It is a Dhammadana. The Buddha says, Sabbadhanam Dhammadanam jinati. The gift of Dhamma excels all other gifts. You are given a Dhammadana. That is a great merit. In this discussion, I wish to explain mindfulness in Buddhism and its application in our day-to-day life. According to Buddhism, mindfulness means the awareness of our body and mind. In details, the awareness of our body, feeling, mind, and mental formations. Why do we need to practice mindfulness? By practicing mindfulness, we can overcome suffering. Buddha says very clearly, practicing mindfulness is the only way for getting rid of suffering, sorrow and lamentation, grief and pain. That is why we need to practice mindfulness. And also, mindfulness is highly appreciated in Buddhism. In various doctrines, we can see mindfulness in Buddhist teachings. When the Blessed One explains 5 spiritual faculties, sati is one of them. When Buddha explains 5 powers, mindfulness is one of them. When Buddha explains 7 enlightenment factors, Sati Sambojjhanga is one of them. When Buddha explains the Noble Eightfold Path that leads to getting rid of suffering, mindfulness is one of them, Samma Sati, right mindfulness. In this situation, it is very clear the importance of practicing mindfulness. Happiness is the main purpose of everyone who was born in this world. We do everything in the name of happiness. Buddha explains the way how we achieve the real happiness. Therefore, if we hope to become happiness, we have to practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is the only way for purification of beings. In this situation, I think if we can understand mindfulness according to Buddha's message, that is very important. In the current society, a lot of people explain mindfulness. They teach mindfulness. They apply mindfulness in various places. As Buddhism, as Buddha's followers, understanding mindfulness is very important according to what the Buddha explained. When we discuss mindfulness, most of people say that, please live in the present moment. Living in the present moment is discussed as mindfulness. But that is not the complete meaning of mindfulness in Buddhism. Sometimes we can see some people say that forget your past, forget your future, live in the present moment. That is the mindfulness. In this situation, we should understand, should we forget our past or future? Actually, according to Buddhism, when we practice mindfulness, our memory gradually increases. Memory is not the fault. Remembering our past or future is not the fault. The fault is ignorance or delusion, avidya. By practicing mindfulness, we should understand how suffering arises and how suffering ceases. When we discuss Buddha's message about mindfulness, the discourses are a lot about mindfulness. In Satipatthana Samyutta, there are many discourses we can see. In Digha Nikaya, there is a very long discourse, Maha Satipatthana Sutta, the great discourse of mindfulness. When we learn these discourses, we can get the real meaning of mindfulness uttered by the Blessed One. Buddha says in Vibhanga Sutta, Satipatthānaṁ ova bhikkhave desissāmi satipatthāna bhavananca satipatthāna bhavanāgāmini patipadanca. Satipatthāna or mindfulness can be divided into 3. One of them is Satipatthāna, mindfulness. The next one is Satipatthāna bhavana, mindfulness meditation. And Satipatthāna bhavanāgāmini patipada, mindfulness that leads to attain the path. These 3 things should be understood by a person who wishes to practice mindfulness and get rid of suffering. Mindfulness, the first mindfulness means living in the present moment, contemplating on our body, feeling, consciousness and mental formations. Mindfulness meditation means reflecting on impermanence, which happen to our senses, objects and 5 aggregates. When we practice mindfulness meditation, we don't think in the present moment. We reflect on the past which happened in our senses and 5 aggregates. And the path that leads to mindfulness meditation, Satipatthāna bhavanāgāmini patipada, means the Noble Eightfold Path. These 3 things are very important. Mindfulness, mindfulness meditation, and the path that leads to mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness belongs to the present moment. It belongs to the conventional truth. Mindfulness meditation belongs to passion, the ultimate truth, insight meditation. The path that leads to mindfulness meditation, we can understand the Noble Eightfold Path, the main doctrines in Buddhism, the 8 steps of happiness, the Noble Eightfold Path. These 3 things are interrelated. Even though we live in the present moment, such as mindful eating, mindful walking, mindful sleeping, mindful drinking, that is not just the real meaning of mindfulness in Buddhism. That is only the primary level understanding. When we refer the discourses in Satipatthana Samyutta, in Samyutta Nikaya, in many discourses, Buddha has explained the importance of the primary qualities that we have when we practice mindfulness. Adikeyaneva kusalesu dhammesu parisuddhehi, that we can explain. Buddha says, at the beginning of practicing mindfulness, I explain you to purify, cleanse your behavior, your wholesomeness. There Buddha says, Silancha suvisuddhang dittincha ujuka. Sila or virtue should be cleansed, and also dittincha ujuka, vision or right understanding should be straight, should be clear. These 2 things are very important. One of them is Sila, and the other one is vision or right understanding. Before we start our mindfulness journey, we should have discipline in our speech and behavior, Sila, virtue or moral conduct. Not only that, dittincha ujuka, we should have clear vision what we practice, what is the result of practicing this path, and what is the destination. In this situation, it is very clear of practicing mindfulness. There always Buddha explains the importance of right understanding, vision, sammaditthi. Sammaditthi puryajavan. Right understanding should be first. Before we start mindfulness, we should understand why do we need to practice mindfulness, how we practice mindfulness. We practice mindfulness in order to overcome suffering. What is suffering? Suffering means, Buddha says, the dukkha satya, the noble truth of suffering. When we hear something, when we smell something, when we taste something, the very first experience, the first 5 aggregates, that is the noble truth of suffering. The very first experience, it is very clear, that is neither wholesome nor unwholesome. That is just a result of our previous actions. If we are ignorant about the very first experience, we are going to cling in of 5 aggregates. That is the cause of suffering. In this situation, we are going to understand the very first experience. When we understand the very first experience, the 5 aggregates as the result, we should realize what is the nature of the 5 aggregates. The very first experience, 5 aggregates, is not pleasant nor unpleasant. That is neither pleasant nor unpleasant. That very first experience is neutral. When we are ignorant, we are going to cling in the 5 aggregates. By practicing mindfulness, we realize the nature of the 5 aggregates as a result. Then we understand how suffering arises. Whenever we are ignorant, we are going to cling in. Avidya paccaya sankhara. Through ignorance are conditioned mental formations. Sankhara paccaya vijnanam. Through mental formations is conditioned consciousness. Sankhara paccaya vijnanam. This is the way how suffering arises, how the sansaric circle arises. Whenever we are ignorant, we are in the sansaric circle. It means we consist with jara, decay, jati, rebirth, sickness, death, sorrow, lamentation. No one likes to get suffering. Everyone likes to get happiness. In this situation, whenever we are ignorant, it means our mind is fixed in outside world because of ignorance. Then we are in the samsaric circle. When our mind is fixed in outside material world, when outside material world changes, we are suffering. If we want to overcome suffering, we should be away from the material world mentally. For that, we have to practice mindfulness. Here, it is very important to understand the path that leads to getting rid of suffering. Mindfulness is not just a particular one or just one part. It should be a part of the Noble Eightfold Path, Arya Attangika Magga. Before we start mindfulness, we should have discipline, and also we should have clear understanding about the Sammaditthi. Sammaditthi means Dukkhe Jnanam, Samudaya Jnanam, Nirodha Jnanam, Magga Jnanam. Understanding the noble truth of suffering, understanding the cause of suffering, and the cessation of suffering, and the Noble Eightfold Path that leads to getting rid of suffering. Here, again, we should understand clearly how suffering arises. Whenever we look at something through our senses, if we think there is something outside at the moment, it means we are ignorant. We think that still there is something material thing outside. Actually, we can contact something through our senses at the moment. There is a material world. But when we recognize something, it is clear, according to Buddhism, the first experience has ceased. When we recognize something through our eye consciousness, actually, eye, form, eye consciousness have ceased. We recognize everything through our mind consciousness. According to Satya Yamaka in Abhidhamma Pitaka, the Blessed One says very clearly, Na panchahi vinyanehi kinchi dhamma pativijanati. We are unable to recognize anything through our five consciousness, such as eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness. We are unable to recognize anything through our five consciousness. We recognize everything through our mind consciousness, manovinyana. The interesting thing is that when we recognize something through our six senses, the very first experience, the first five aggregates have ceased. But our ignorance, our delusion, avidya doesn't believe it. We always think there is something outside. But there is outside world. But when we recognize something, the material world has ceased. Whenever we don't know this reality, because of ignorance, our mind is fixed in outside world, it means we are in the samsaric circle, we have to get suffering. Nobody likes to get suffering. Everyone dislikes suffering. Everyone likes happiness. In this situation, now we know how we practice mindfulness. What do we need to practice mindfulness? By practicing mindfulness, we focus on this reality at the moment. We keep our attention in our senses, in our mind and mental formations. Whenever we are mindful in the present moment, when we see something, when we hear something, when we smell something, we keep our attention in the present moment, and also we reflect on impermanence. What is the impermanence? I is impermanent, form is impermanent, eye contact is impermanent, eye consciousness is impermanent. As soon as we look at something, immediately we recognize the very first experience has ceased. Even though we contact something through our eye consciousness, we are unable to stay in the present moment. It is very fast. It is very instant. We understand everything through our mind consciousness after the first experience has ceased. First of all, we should understand this reality. Whenever we are ignorant, we are in the samsaric circle, it means we depend on outside. Whenever we are wise with right understanding, at the moment we reflect on impermanence. Whenever we reflect on impermanence, as soon as we experience something, suddenly, immediately, we reflect on the past. My aggregates have ceased. My senses already have ceased. I recognize this experience at the moment. I recognize something through my mind consciousness at the moment. That mind consciousness is also impermanent. It arises and ceases with the condition. With this understanding, we understand how we practice the Dhamma. All the Buddhist doctrines can be summarized into mindfulness. That is why Buddha says, when we practice mindfulness, the 7 enlightenment factors, Satta Bojjhanga, develop. When Satta Bojjhanga or 7 enlightenment factors develop, the Noble Eightfold Path develops. When we practice the Noble Eightfold Path, we are able to achieve the liberation and knowledge, Vidya Vimukti. It is very clear that with the understanding of the 5 aggregates and also dependent origination and the 4 noble truths, if we practice mindfulness, little by little we can go forward. When we discuss mindfulness in Buddhism, there are 3 topics altogether. They are 4 noble truths, 5 aggregates, and the dependent origination. Avidya paccaya sankhara. Through ignorance are conditioned mental formations. Iti imasmin satidang hoti. When this is, this is. When this is not, this is not. When we see something with ignorance, suffering arises. Whenever we see something with wisdom, then suffering doesn't arise. This is the understanding of the dependent origination of Patisampada, and also the 4 noble truths. Dukkha Satya. The very first experience is the first truth of the noble truth of suffering, and also the cause of suffering, attachment or ignorance, cessation of suffering, and the path, the Noble Eightfold Path. We should have clear understanding about the 4 noble truths. The very first noble truth, the noble truth of suffering, should be realized. We are unable to overcome the first truth, the noble truth of suffering. Buddha never says us to overcome the first noble truth. First noble truth, the dukkha satya, should be realized, should be understood. What is the first noble truth? The very first experience of our senses. That very first experience is neither wholesome nor unwholesome. That is neutral. When we understand the first experience, we don't go to ignorance. We understand very clearly that first experience has ceased. In this understanding, we always keep our attention in the present moment. How do we practice mindfulness? Here we should understand mindfulness and mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness means keeping our attention in the present moment, in our body, feeling, consciousness, and mental formations. This belongs to the conventional truth. When we look at something, when we hear something, when we smell something, when we feel something, we should be aware of our body and mind. First of all, we should be aware of our body. then we should be aware of our feeling and consciousness and mental formations. That is the first stage of practicing mindfulness. Buddha says, Ekayano ayam bhikkhave maggo sattana visuddhya soka paridhavana samatikkamaya dukkha domanassanam attangamaya nyayasa adhigamaya nibbanasa sachikiryaya. Practicing mindfulness is the only way for the purification of beings. This is only path for the overcoming sorrow and lamentation. This is only way for getting rid of grief and pain. This is only path for gaining knowledge. This is only path for attaining enlightenment. In this situation, we should understand practicing mindfulness is very, very important. At the beginning, we keep our attention in our body, feeling, consciousness, and mental formations. The very first part of Kayanupassana, or the contemplation of being aware of our body, especially being aware of our breathing in and out, Anapanasati. When we breathe in, we understand now I breathe in. When we breathe out, we understand that now I breathe out. Again and again, we focus our mind around the nose or upper lip with breathing in and out. When our mind is concentrated, we understand that this breathing in and out is a result of our body. This body is a result of our food or nutrition that we take. This is not a particular person. This is just a result of some conditions. Because of nutrition or food, the body arises. Because of body, living body, Anapanasati, or breathing in and out, arises and ceases. The very first part, mindfulness, we practice breathing in and out, keeping our attention in the present moment. Not only that, mindfulness meditation means we understand the cause of the reason of breathing in and out. Samudaya dhammanupassye viharati, vaya dhammanupassye viharati. Ahara samudaya, rupa samudayo, ahara nirodha, rupa nirodho. This physical body has arisen because of nutrition. When nutrition ceases, this body ceases. This body is not just a person, particular person. This is not mine. This is not me. This is not myself. In the Kayanupassana, the contemplation of body, we can see several meditation techniques. Anapanasati, Iriyapata Bhavana, Dhatu Manasikara, Sampajanya, Navasivatika, like that. We can be aware of our body postures, standing, sitting, walking, and lying down. When we have these postures, we should understand there is a posture, but this is not a particular person. This is the result of our body and mind. And also this body has arisen because of nutrition or food that we have taken. Because of cessation of food, this body also ceases. By practicing Kayanupassana, little by little, we overcome the ignorance of our body. We understand this body is not a particular person. It is a result of some reasons such as food. The next step of mindfulness is that practicing Vedananupassana, the contemplation of feeling. When we have feelings, Sukha Vedana, Dukkha Vedana, Adukkama Sukha Vedana, we understand. When we have pleasant feeling, we understand now I have a pleasant feeling. When we have unpleasant feelings, we understand now I have unpleasant feelings. When we have neutral feelings, we understand that now I have neutral feelings. When we have non-sensual pleasant feeling, we understand it. When we have sensual pleasant feeling, we understand it. We have non-sensual unpleasant feeling, sensual unpleasant feeling, non-sensual neutral feeling, sensual neutral feeling. We understand all the feelings whenever we are aware of our feelings. We are aware of our feelings at the moment. We keep our attention in the present moment through our six senses as mindfulness. When we go to practice mindfulness meditation, we understand these feelings arise because of contact. When contact arises, feelings arise. When contact ceases, feelings also cease. These feelings are impermanent, selfless. Every moment, feeling arises and ceases. It is not just a particular person, it is a result of some conditions or reasons. We understand these feelings arise because of contact. When contact ceases, feelings also gradually cease. By practicing Vedanupassana or the contemplation of feeling, we realize Atti Vedanati va Sati Pachupatati. We understand there is a feeling, but this is not just a particular person, this is a result of contact. Then we can overcome the ignorance of feeling. If we don't have this understanding, we take our feelings as mine, as me, as myself. When we understand the condition of feeling, we understand the reasons of feeling, then we don't take anything as mine, as me, as myself. The third part of mindfulness is that Chittanupassana, the contemplation of consciousness. Through our six senses, every moment consciousness arises. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, body consciousness, like that. These consciousnesses arise at the moment one by one. We focus on this consciousness. When our mind is lustful, we understand now my mind has lust. When mind is not lustful, we understand now my mind has no lust. When mind is angry, we understand my mind has anger at the moment. When mind is ignorant, we understand now my mind has ignorance. We are fully aware of our consciousness. Not only that, we understand this consciousness is not just a particular person, or this consciousness doesn't belong to a particular person. This consciousness arises because of some reasons. Namarupa paccaya vijnanam. Because of mentality and corporeality, consciousness arises. When mentality and corporeality cease, consciousness also ceases. We understand the cause and effect, causality, or dependent origination. Then we don't take our consciousness as mine, as me, as myself. And also, we recognize mental formations, practicing Dhammanupassana. Now we are fully aware of our body, feeling, and consciousness. Then we are aware of mental formations. First, we understand 5 hindrances. When our mind has sensual pleasure, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, skeptical doubt, we recognize at the moment my mind has these kind of hindrances. When we are aware of these hindrances, they gradually go away because of our mindfulness. And also when our mind is free from these negativities, hindrances, we understand at the moment my mind has no hindrances. Like that, By practicing Dhammanupassana, or the contemplation of mental formations, we recognize 5 aggregates, then gradually we can reduce 5 hindrances. Whenever we have 5 hindrances, actually we have no real happiness. We can see the beauty of our mind. By practicing sati or mindfulness, we overcome 5 hindrances. Not only that, by practicing mindfulness meditation, we gradually overcome ignorance or delusion, avidya, which is the main cause of greed and anger, which is the main cause of suffering in the samsaric circle. Gradually we go forward. Then we understand 5 aggregates. Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana. Rupa form, Vedana feeling, Sanya perception, Sankhara mental formations, and Vijnana consciousness. These 5 things arise every moment. When we contact something through our senses, as the result of our previous actions, the very first experience is the result. In the very first experience, these 5 aggregates arise. Actually, that is not neither pleasant nor unpleasant. That is neither wholesome nor unwholesome. That is just the result. Now we are aware of these 5 aggregates. If we are ignorant, these 5 aggregates are going to cling in. If we have the clinging of 5 aggregates, it means we are in the samsaric circle, avidya, paccaya, sankhara. We have to get suffering with decay, sorrow, lamentation, sickness, and death. We don't like to get suffering. In this situation, we always keep our mind in the present moment with mindfulness. Not only that, we reflect on impermanence of 5 aggregates. As soon as we look at something, we hear something, we smell something, immediately we see the 5 aggregates which have already ceased. Then we are free from the present moment, the present world, material world. We see the world as the empty village. Sunyo gamang avikkasu. Sunyato gaman avikkasu. We see the world, the outside world, like the empty village. It means Buddhism doesn't say that there is no material world. Actually, there is a material world. We contact the material world, materials, the 4 fundamental elements. But the interesting thing is that when we recognize that material world, the first experience has ceased. We always recognize something through our mind consciousness. That mind consciousness also instant. It is impermanent. It is not me. It is not myself. By practicing Dhammanupassana, we recognize these 5 aggregates very well. These 5 aggregates also arise because of some conditions. When conditions cease, these 5 aggregates immediately cease. And also, we go forward. We recognize the 6 senses and 6 external objects, like eye, ear, nose, our internal senses, and also form, sound, smell, like that. Those are the external objects. Everything, internal senses, spheres, and external objects, they arise at the moment, and also they cease at the moment. We recognize the 6 senses and 6 objects too by practicing Dhammanupassana. And also now we go forward in this understanding, we recognize the 7 enlightenment factors. Sati Sambojjhanga, mindfulness, Dhammavijaya Sambojjhanga, keen investigation, Viriya, energy, Piti, rapture, Passaddhi, tranquility, Samadhi, concentration, and Upekha, equanimity. Now we are fulfilling these 7 enlightenment factors. We start with the Sammaditthi. When we go forward little by little, we recognize our physical body, feeling, consciousness, and mental formations. Now we are fulfilling the 7 enlightenment factors. Now, our mindfulness that we practice daily gradually has increased. Every moment, we are aware of our body and mind. Actually, our real success depends on our happiness. Our happiness depends on reducing greed and anger. Reducing greed and anger depends on reducing ignorance. Reducing ignorance depends on practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness is the only way for the purification of beings. That is only way for the gaining knowledge. Mindfulness is our best friend. Always we should keep our attention in the present moment. Not only we should live in the present moment, but we should reflect on impermanence, which already has ceased as the previous experience. Keeping our attention in the present moment as mindfulness, we reflect on impermanence, keeping our attention in the past experience. Insight meditation or vipassana bhavana belongs to the previous section, previous experience. That is why Buddha says, ditte dittamattam bhavisati, sute sutamattam, mute mutamattam, viññate viññatamattam. What we have seen, just seen. Ditta, sutta, mutta, viññata. These verbs belongs to the past tense. Those are not the present tense. In the present tense, Buddha says, gacchanto va gacchami pajanati. When we walk, we should understand now I am walking. That is mindfulness. But mindfulness meditation belongs to past experience. We reflect on the past experience. But at the beginning, we should keep our attention in the present moment with our body, feeling, consciousness, and mental formation. In this path, it is very important to understand the Noble Eightfold Path. Our mindfulness is not just a mindfulness, but it should be a part of the Noble Eightfold Path, Samma Sati, right mindfulness. Samma Ditti, right understanding, leads to other 7 factors. What is the right understanding? Understanding the Four Noble Truths, dependent origination, or 5 aggregates. With this understanding, we have right intention, Samma Sankappa, and Samma Vacha. We always speak right words, Samma Vacha, right speech, and Samma Kammanta. Our actions are correct. Samma Ajiva, right livelihood. Samma Vayama, right effort. Samma Sati, right mindfulness, and Samma Samadhi, right concentration. The more we practice mindfulness, the more we concentrate our mind in the present moment with some objects. The more we concentrate our mind, the more we reflect on impermanence. I is impermanent, form is impermanent, I consciousness is impermanent, like that. Again, Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankhara, like form, feeling, like that. Whenever we keep our attention in the present moment, and also when we reflect on impermanence about the past experience, we are free from the outside world. It means we depend on inside. Whenever we depend on outside, It means we are ignorant. It means we are in the samsaric circle. It means outside world can control us. We are with suffering. Nobody likes get suffering. If we want to overcome suffering, we should understand this reality, the dependent origination, the causality, or the Four Noble Truths. Not only we should have understanding, but we should be aware of our body and mind. We should practice mindfulness. Always we should keep our attention in the present moment, keeping our attention around the nose or upper lip. As soon as we see something, we hear something, we taste something, we smell something, we should understand the first experience has ceased. I understand these forms through my mind consciousness. That mind consciousness also impermanent. That arises and ceases at the moment. The more we practice mindfulness with this understanding, we have made a refuge, freedom, liberation. This is the vimutti, emancipation, liberation, freedom, explained by the Exalted One. The more we have this understanding, the more we are confident in the Buddha's enlightenment. Saddhati tathagatassa bodhi. Saddha leads to our other qualities. If we have confidence about this reality, whenever I am ignorant, I am in the samsaric circle, I have to get suffering. Whenever I am wise and mindful, at the moment, I keep my attention in the present moment with my body, feeling, consciousness and mental formations, reflecting on impermanence. At the moment, I am away from the samsaric circle. It means we have made a refuge. That is why Buddha says, Attadepa bhikkhave viharatata sarana na anya sarana. Dwell with yourself as an island, as a refuge, with no other refuge. How we make a refuge? The way how to make a refuge is that living in the present moment. Living with mindfulness. Reflecting on impermanence. Actually, the Buddha's path, the Buddhist path is the way how we liberate from suffering. We have received a very valuable message explained by the Blessed One. Having this kind of valuable message, we don't need to get suffering. The happiness or liberation is very clear. Here it is very important to understand the Noble Eightfold Path, and we should understand the Noble Eightfold Path is that the 8 steps of happiness. The 8 steps of happiness. If we know this reality, we always live according to the Noble Eightfold Path. We don't go away from the Noble Eightfold Path. This is the real path that gives us fearlessness, freedom, happiness, emancipation. For that, with this understanding, let's try to practice mindfulness as much as we can according to the Noble Eightfold Path. For that, I wish you all the best. By the power of this spiritual energy, may you be well, happy and peaceful. Now, you can ask questions if you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable, for outstanding talk. We greatly appreciate it. And here begin our question answer session. Please write your question in the chat box. I haven't seen any questions, so I will put forward one question. So people often say, I don't have time to meditate for even for an hour every day. So do you have any tips or suggestions to develop mindfulness while working?
If someone says that I don't have time to meditate, it means he or she hasn't time to breathe. If we have time to breathe, and if we can add mindfulness to our breathing, it is meditation. Meditation means practicing mindfulness, being aware of our body and mind. When we walk, we should think that now I am working. When you eat something, you can think now I am eating. Whatever we do, you can be aware of what you are doing. Not only that, living in the present moment, then we should reflect on impermanence. When we are aware of our body, we should understand this body has arisen because of nutrition or food that we have taken. When nutrition ceases, this body also ceases. This body is not a particular person. This is not mine, me, myself. And also when we have feelings through our six senses, pleasant, unpleasant or neutral, we are aware of these feelings. We keep our attention in the present moment, and also we understand these feelings arise because of contact. When contact ceases, feeling ceases. We understand the nature of feelings. We don't take any feeling as mine, as me, as myself. We understand the cause and effect. And especially, practicing breathing meditation is highly appreciated in Buddhism. According to Ananda Sutta and Anapanasati Sutta, Buddha says, with this understanding about the Four Noble Truths and the different origination, if someone practices only one thing, four qualities gradually develop. When four qualities develop, seven qualities gradually increase. When seven qualities develop, both qualities develop. What is one quality? One quality is that breathing meditation. When we practice breathing meditation, according to what the Buddha taught, then fourfold mindfulnesses gradually increase. When fourfold mindfulnesses develop, seven enlightenment factors develop. When seven enlightenment factors develop, we can achieve Vidya Vimukti, knowledge and liberation. In this situation, finally we have to do only one thing. The very important thing, that's keeping our attention around the nose of upper lip. We always think some material things or persons. No matter whatever we think, we always remember some persons or some material world. At the moment, if we can understand, when I recognize this material world, the first experience has ceased. I have recognized everything through my mind consciousness. Manovinyana. That Manovinyana also impermanent. Actually, we can see very clearly the main defilement, ignorance, gradually reduces. If we don't depend on outside, it means outside world are unable to bring us suffering. We have made a refuge for liberation.
Thank you, Bante.
The most important thing is that mindfulness, being aware of your body and mind in the present moment. Whenever you are away from mindfulness, it means you are away from the Buddha. Whenever you are away from the Buddha, it means you are near the Mara or devil. This is the reality. Okay.
Thank you, Venerable. The question from our audience, Samatha Pereira, is the concept of present moment found in the Sutta Pitaka? If so, which suttas? If not, this is a concept found in the Visuddhimagga of Buddhaghosa?
Actually, samatha can be seen in many places in Buddhism, in Tripitaka. Reverend Buddhaghosa also has explained it in Visuddhimagga, that samatha is very clearly we can see in Tripitaka. Buddha has explained many places. As a wise person, we have to practice only samatha and vipassana. As the result of practicing mindfulness, we keep our attention in the present moment, then we can develop mindfulness. When we discuss Indriya Dharma, Pancha Indriya, Saddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, Panya, Samadhi is there. When we explain 5 energies, Saddha Bala, Virya Bala, Sati Bala, Samadhi Bala, Virya Bala, Samadhi is there. When we discuss 7 enlightenment factors, Samadhi is Sambojjhanga. When we discuss the Noble Eightfold Path, Samadhi is there, Samma Samadhi, right concentration. Everywhere we can say right concentration. That is not just concentration, that is right concentration which consists with right understanding. That is the difference in Buddhism. Samma Samadhi. Samadhi is not just a samadhi or concentration. It should be a part of the Noble Eightfold Path with right understanding. When mind gains concentration, we don't stop in concentration. Samahito bhikkhave bhikkhu yatha bhutam bhajanati. When mind gains concentration, we reflect on impermanence. As 6 senses, 6 objects, 5 aggregates, nama rupa. According to these realities, we reflect on impermanence, rising and ceasing. In this situation, it is clear that mindfulness and especially concentration is also explained in various places in Buddhism. It is one of the parts of main doctrines in Buddhism.
Thank you, Mante. Next question from Harrison Sapira. What is the significance of the instruction to overcome covetousness and grief regarding the world?
Please explain it again.
What is the significance of the instruction to overcome covetousness and grief regarding the world?
Actually, always Buddha emphasizes the importance of having understanding. Janato aham bhikkhave passato asavanam khayam vadami no ajanato no apassato. Buddha says very clearly, I proclaim the liberation for those who know the path, who see the path. First of all, we should know how suffering arises, how suffering ceases. That is the very first step as Sammaditthi. Sammaditthi Purya Javan. Right understanding is first. Again, Buddha says in Karanimetta Sutta, Dittincha anupagamma silava. Dittincha anupagamma. It means not falling into extremes as Sassatavada and Uchedavada. We should have clear understanding about the Four Noble Truths and the dependent origination. How suffering arises, how suffering ceases. With that understanding, we start our spiritual journey, Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Sila means virtue, Samadhi concentration, and Panya wisdom. First of all, we should have clear understanding the Four Noble Truths. Understanding Four Noble Truths leads to practice mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom.
Thank you, Penelo. Next question from our student, Yvonne. Please kindly elaborate on how the academic training supported your journey on the Dharma path. Please.
Actually, here it is very important to understand the academic purposes and spiritual purposes. It is different. Academic people always like to get their degrees and have a better job. But this is not like that. The main thing is that when you study something, you should understand, why do I need to learn these doctrines? The main thing that we learn these doctrines in order to overcome greed, anger, and delusion. At the same time, when you study something, If you have a purpose to overcome your greed, anger and delusion, then you can fulfill your both intentions, both wishes. But always we should give the priority to our spiritual goals. Our spiritual goal always should be in order to overcome greed, anger and delusion. Whatever we do, we should reflect on it again and again, whether my trusna drustiman, greed, conceit and self-view increase or decrease. This is the measurement. No matter whatever you do, always you reflect on yourself. When I do these activities, whether my greed, self-view and conceit increase or decrease. If you have this intention, while you are fulfilling your academic qualifications, you can overcome defilements gradually. Here it is very important to understand the qualities of Karanimetta Sutta. Sakko ujocha sujocha. We should be skillful about the Four Noble Truths, and also we should be honest. Not only just honest but upright. These qualities are very important. If you have the qualities which come in Karanimetta Sutta, we can see that you are on the real path. No matter whatever you do sometimes your academic activities or your some careers, it doesn't matter. But always we should understand when I do these activities, whether my negativities decrease or increase, especially ignorance. And also you should reflect on that, whether I am in mindfulness or not. This is the measurement. And also we should make a mind that among the people, those who are angry, I live without anger. Among the people, those who are greedy, I am living without greed. Among the people, those who are ignorant, I am living without ignorance. This is the measurement that we can find in our life.
Thank you, Benjamin. Last question from our student, Baisali. With the understanding of mindfulness, sati, how do understand khanti, patience? Where do we find reference in the Tipitaka?
As the result of practicing this path, we do everything. Buddha says, like, Rahulavada Sutta. Buddha explained some doctrines for Bhante Rahula, Buddha's son in the lay life. Buddha says, when you do something, please reflect on it again and again whether it is correct. When you speak something, you should think it again and again whether it is correct. When you think something, please reflect on it again and again before you do it. This is the khanti. If we do something suddenly, actually we have no khanti, no patience. If we think again and again before we do something, that is the place where we practice patience. And also, when we practice mindfulness, and especially mindfulness meditation, Buddha says at the beginning, very beginning, we practice loving kindness meditation. According to Karanimetta Sutta, Yantan Santam Padang Abhisamecca, he who wishes to attain the peace of mind should practice loving kindness meditation. Sabbe Satta Bhavantu Sukhitatta. When we practice loving kindness meditation, then we see the world like our children. Then this is the place we can see how we practice this khanti or patience. And also, especially when we practice insight meditation, we don't find a material world. We see everything has already ceased, material world. When you look at me, you think that you are looking at me at the moment. Actually, your eye contacts me at the moment, but when you recognize me as a person, you recognize everything through your mind consciousness. Then material has ceased. If we have this understanding, we have nothing to make angry. Then automatically we are in patience. If you need to me explain something, let me know, please.
So time is running out, so we will close our session. Once again, thank you, Venerable, for an insightful talk. We're so grateful to have you today. And at last, I would like to thank Venerable Srinanda for organizing this talk and also your kind support. And thank you everyone for attending. Have a good night.
Okay, I appreciate your participation. By the power of the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, by the power of listening to Dhamma at the moment, may you be well, happy and peaceful. May your all righteous wishes meet with success. Finally, may all of us attain the final bliss of liberation. Dukkham pantāca nirdukkha, bhayam pantāca nirbhaya, sokam pantāca nissokha, hontu sambe pipanino. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All the blessings be with you.
Thank you, Venerable. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you so much.
And everyone. Bye-bye.